When I was 5, 6 years old on the playground, I was shouting out, I'm a boy all the time. Ever since I've had top surgery and the testosterone kicked in, I think that's when I've started to be like, wow, this is my body. This is so cool. If younger me could see me now, like this is how I belong. You know, the kid in school that doesn't revise and gets straight A's? I feel like that because I'll be honest, I didn't want to go on Big Brother. Within 48 hours of being in there, the Daily Mail, The Sun, someone would have gotten hold of that and they would have put that out there, and I wanted it to be on my terms.
Hello and welcome back to the queerest podcast telling the fiercest stories. This is Queer Talker and I'm Ben Cicchetti. Before we get to my conversation with everyone's favourite Big Brother housemate, Zelah Glasson, I have a very quick favour to ask. Wherever you are watching or listening to this episode, hit that subscribe button. It's one click and it's going to make a massive difference. It's going to allow me to grow this podcast and it's going to allow me to bring you the best and the queerest episodes every single time. So in advance, thank you. Now let's jump straight into my conversation with Zelah. Zelah, welcome to Queer Talker. I'm so excited to speak to you today.
Hi, Ben. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're going to start, as everyone knows, with our Queer Panic questions, which is a rapid-fire set of questions, and you just get to respond with the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
Starting with, what was the first album you ever owned?
James Blunt, Back to Bedlam.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That was super quick. I like that.
You got me into music.
Yeah. You got a few people through a few breakups as well. A lot of my friends got through breakups because of James Blunt, so I totally feel that. Speaking of music, if you had to lip sync for your life, what song would you choose?
Lose Yourself, Eminem.
Amazing.
Great song. I actually once sprained my wrist because I was lip syncing too hard to that song.
Okay. Trying to do the Eminem thing. Like. What is your favorite queer movie or TV show?
Heated Rivalry, which I know is quite a modern answer, but it's so good.
It's really good. Suddenly, so many people are into ice hockey for no apparent reason.
For research purposes.
Yeah, exactly. Who is your ultimate queer icon?
I love Fletcher or Kalani. Sorry, I give him two.
Okay. That works. We often get a few. It's quite hard to narrow it down to one icon. And then a very selfish question on my part. Who is one person you would like to hear on this podcast?
Fizz Sinclair. She's hilarious.
Yes, that would be amazing. Okay, we will slide into the DMs and try and get them on. And then finally, what is one word you would use to describe your childhood?
Messy.
Okay.
Hello.
That works. Well, we can get a bit deeper into it because as long-term listeners know, I kind of have this theory that to understand an LGBTQ plus person as an adult, you kind of first need to understand them as a young person. So you say messy. What should I know about you as a child or a teenager to understand the Zelah that sits in front of me today?
I was very chaotic. So it's funny because I think from Big Brother and I guess how I am now, people see me as quite calm. I'm still I'm on the ADHD waiting list, and I think it will come to a shock to no one in my life, including myself, when I inevitably get diagnosed. But in terms of like general like day to day, I think I'm a lot calmer now. So when I say like when I was throughout my childhood, I was like always getting into trouble. Nearly got kicked out of school multiple times. Just like, very chaotic, rebellious. That was my teen years. And even before then, actually, to be fair, I nearly got kicked out of school.
Interesting. And do you think that was because were you just rebelling against a system you didn't feel you wanted to be part of? Like, what was it, do you think, in you that it was kind of creating that chaos, I guess?
I think a combination of things. One, like the undiagnosed ADHD definitely played a part. Like I could barely sit still. I mean, I'm better at it now, and even now, like my leg is shaking. And also just like, and I think a lot of people, kids with ADHD, will relate to this. But like speaking out of line and stuff, not being able to just keep my thoughts internal.
Yeah.
That was a big thing. And yeah, and there was also like not the best home life. On top of that as well, like probably suppressed gender and stuff like that. So yeah.
And then I guess if you take yourself back to that and those feelings, do you remember the first LGBTQ plus person you kind of became aware of? And then I guess even more specifically, the first trans person you became aware of and how that felt for you?
Um, the first LGBT person I was aware of, I'm trying to think, like Elton John.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Elton John, Prince. Those those are the people that come to mind, I think. Um, but in terms of like, I mean, the things that probably have more effects on me were in the queer world would have been lesbians because I came out as I was a lesbian for a while, and I think that was the biggest thing I was battling with when I was younger. But I can't even think who's the first lesbian that I was aware of, other than like Ellen.
Ellen
um,
DeGeneres. Yeah.
but I do remember, so actually, funny enough, when I was 12, I think it was 2012, this guy called Luke A was on Big Brother, and it was the only time I'd ever seen a trans person on TV, especially a
Mm.
trans man. And it was the only time since, actually. I'm now very aware of like Jax Feely and Lars Fellows, but I didn't watch their series of I Kissed a Boy and Hunted. It's Hunted, he did?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, so I hadn't watched it. So actually, funnily enough, Luke A from Big Brother was the only time I'd ever seen a trans man on TV. And I wasn't. I didn't come out as trans until 11 years after that, but it stuck with me, and there's clearly a reason for that. So yeah.
Yeah. And I'm doing the math very quickly. I'm realizing you were born in the year 2000, which is making me feel incredibly old. So I really appreciate that part of that conversation.
I
So
turned
then,
20 in a few days.
yeah, okay, okay. Thanks for that. I appreciate it. Because also it's funny, right? Because for Big Brother, for a lot of people, Nadia was a really kind of prominent person for their childhood. And I've spoken to people who kind of for them, it was seeing Nadia and seeing her go on to win Big Brother and see kind of that experience was really formative for them. So I do think it's interesting, and we'll obviously get into Big Brother more, but it's interesting the role Big Brother has played in so many people's journeys and so many people's society. For me, it was seeing Brian Dowling, who won season 2 of Big Brother, who was an openly gay man. He was one of the first kind of like really well received gay men I can remember from like a British TV perspective. So it is interesting, I think, kind of the role that Big Brother has and can play in shaping society.
Yeah, because everyone always talks about Nadia, but I think I was a bit too young, so I didn't watch that series.
There
Um,
it is. Okay.
everyone always talks about this. So when I say yeah, Big Brother, Luke Hay, everyone will be like, "What about Nadia?" And I didn't watch that series.
Yeah.
I was too young.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. And you've actually just reminded me, a queer person, well, queer people, or the first time I saw like lesbians or women loving women people was like this YouTube era of like Stevie Bobby, if anyone like this is very niche. Any of
Okay.
your queer woman listeners might know that. And also like Ali Hills. Those were big for me. That
Yeah.
lesbian YouTube era. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I'm curious then, as part of your journey, when you first started to feel like the identity that the world kind of saw you as didn't match how you felt inside, when did you start to kind of feel that?
Um so technically probably when I was 5, 6 years old on the playground, I was
Mm.
shouting out I'm a boy all the time. I was always playing with the boys. I always felt a little bit of outrage when I was forced to do girl things, or in primary school, if they'd be giving the girls notepads and the boys footballs, and I'd be like, "Well, I fucking want a football."
Yeah.
So, like stuff like that. It was always a sense of like, why are you forcing me to do things I don't want to do? I actually looked like this when I was 6 years old without the goatee, but I had like a skin fade and stuff. But then I was kind of forced to go down the feminine route, went to an all girls school and stuff. So that was the first time I can think of. But it wasn't until I was 23 where I realized I was trans.
Then what was it kind of, so many of us go through that journey of that kind of first discovery. And then when we feel truly, authentically just ourselves, and you come across as incredibly authentic to who you are. So when did you think you first felt authentically, this is me? And then when did you feel you could bring it to everything you do and go on Big Brother as you?
I never really had like a I'm trans moment or coming out as trans moment. Like I did as a queer woman, but funnily enough, like my transition it was just so gradual. Like somewhere between when I was at university, I remember saying to my friends, I was like, if you like went into my psyche, I'm probably some kind of non-binary, but I just don't
Mm,
feel the need to transition. I'm pretty happy with myself right now. And then as time went on and I was around 22, I realized I put myself on the NHS waiting list. And even that was like just I was on the phone to my girlfriend, who wasn't even my girlfriend at the time. She was we just started seeing each other. And I was like, I'm gonna go talk to my GP about just being put on the waiting list because, and she was like, all right, so you want to start testosterone? I was like, maybe. Like, I don't know. At this point, I hadn't changed my pronouns or anything. So it's just like, it was so gradual. I think I didn't really get a sense of like, oh, this is me now, until probably, I'm going to say like 8, 9 months on testosterone, because that would have been about 2, 3 months after my top surgery, where like, and ever since I've had top surgery and the testosterone kicked in, I think that's when I've started to be like, wow, this is my body. This is so
yeah.
cool. If younger me could see me now, like this is how I belong. But yeah.
Yeah. And then I guess obviously we touched on it a couple of times, but for many of us, the first time we became aware of you was through Big Brother. So I'm curious to understand, like when I was younger, probably when you weren't even born, I'm realizing, like I always thought it'd be so cool to go on Big Brother, and it was something kind of we all talked about. So what made you decide to apply to go on the show? And then did you have any kind of specific reason? Did you have any kind of concerns or hesitation to going on?
Um, when I'm asked stuff like this, I always feel like, the kid in school that doesn't revise and gets straight A's. I feel like that because I'll be honest, I didn't want to go on
On a
Big Brother.
whim. Okay.
Yeah, like I did watch it growing up. Like I watched it in the 2010s when it was very chaotic and very different Big Brother to what we know now. They all used to drink loads and shout at each other and whatever. But like I never thought I'd ever do anything like that. And then I got a DM in March or April 2025, like, have you considered applying to this show? When people hear you get scouted, they think that, they kind of hold your hand through the process. It's literally like they send you a link and they're like, have you
Yeah.
considered applying to this? And I was just about to quit my corporate job. And my girlfriend and my mum were like, look, you're literally going to build your own business in the queer space. There's nothing to lose by putting yourself forward for a reality TV show. I was like, oh, that sounds like my idea of a nightmare, but I'll do it. I'll put myself forward. I mean, the likelihood of getting onto Big Brother, I mean, I was told like 40,000 people apply. So I was like, well, the likelihood that I'm going to get in is so, so small. Um, and well, that aged well. And I
Yeah.
kept and further through the process and getting more and more anxious. I've said this a few times. I do think I had a very different relationship with the idea of getting on the show. A few of my housemates did. Like I spoke to like Cam and Jenny, and how excited they were when they found out. I was panicking. I was panicking
Yeah.
so hard, and yeah, and a big part of that would have been was because of the idea of being a trans person on TV and having to represent. Because you're forced to represent whether you want to or not,
Yeah.
and I'm so glad to have representation out there. I'm glad to be the representation, but I'm also aware that that can be a lot of pressure and it can be damaging if you get it wrong. So yeah.
Yeah. And did you have a sense of how you were gonna tackle that going into the show? Like from memory, like when Nadia went through, she didn't reveal until she got out of the house. Well, obviously the audience were aware, but she didn't reveal to her housemates until she got out of the house that she was trans. Did you have an idea going into it? Because I feel like if I was in that situation, I'd almost be playing through like I've got to plan how I'm gonna tell people. I've got to plan how I'm gonna kind of explain and reveal this to people. Like, did you feel that sense of pressure going into it? As like, oh, I need to know how I'm gonna navigate this, or did you just go and say, I'm just gonna be me and let it be?
So yes. So essentially, I did wonder, should I reveal it in my VT, so the video that they show you as I walk in the house. And when we did the day of filming, I did because I was like, yeah, I'm happy for that to be the case. However, um, a few weeks later, I was in hiding in a hotel room, and the creative director walks in don't know how much this I'm supposed to reveal. Oh well. And essentially says we've made you two VTs, one where you reveal you're trans and one where you don't. And we were originally going to go with the one where you reveal you're trans. However, we started to think that maybe we shouldn't. Um, and I heard her out. It completely threw me off guard because I talk to my girlfriend about every hard decision, right? My girlfriend's so good at like she's so good at PR. Like if she wasn't
Right.
a tech lawyer in another world, she would be in PR because she'd be so good at it. And unfortunately, I'm in this hotel room alone,
Yeah.
trying to think. And I asked for 24 hours to just have a think about it. And I ended up sticking to the original plan, which was reveal it in my VT, because I knew that if we didn't, then two things would happen. One, when I'm in there, obviously none of my housemates were going to know I was trans anyway. So at some point I was going to have to come out to them. I don't want to also feel like I'm coming out to the nation,
Mm,
because although the idea behind the team had, if we don't reveal it, is it would just come out naturally, it wouldn't for me, because in
yeah.
my head it would be like I'm not just coming out to this person in front of me. There's cameras watching me, and uh so yeah, that was one reason. The other reason was like I'm my platform's a lot bigger since I've been in Big Brother, but I had documented my entire transition on social media. I had a decent TikTok following and Instagram following. It was going to get revealed. Like if
Yeah.
I like within 48 hours of being in there, the Daily Mail, the Sun, someone would have gotten hold of that and they would have put that out there, and I wanted it to be on my terms.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, so that those were my two reasons, and I'm glad that I stuck to it because yeah, I'm glad the way it went.
Yeah. And reality TV is such a interesting environment because you are obviously it's a heightened environment because you're in the house, but you're essentially living your real life, but it's being edited into a show, and that show has to be entertaining and that show has to grip people. So when I guess when you got out of the house and you watched the show back or watched clips of the show, did you feel you were kind of fairly represented in quote unquote the edit, or were there parts of your experience you didn't feel the viewers got to see?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like, I do think they made me out to be a bit more. I mean, I'm quite a political person. I have a master's in international politics. I am, but like, I think they missed out some of the fun parts. Like, I think they did the same with. Like, I had a close friendship with Fair Charlotte, for example, and with her, they like she is quite funny. Don't tell her I said that. She's really funny, but they never showed any of that. So yeah, there's definitely parts of your personality you feel weren't shown, but like I'm also aware that, you know, they get to show an hour of 24 hours a day. So fair enough. If you didn't make me look fun, maybe I just needed to be more fun. but but yeah, so I think yeah, there's always going to be elements of that. But I think the edit in general. I mean, I haven't watched it back, so
Yeah.
I couldn't actually tell you.
That would be
Um,
odd to watch back, I bet.
yeah, I think it would be odd. And I think like when you're in there, you really think you're going to watch it all back, and most of my housemates have. I haven't. I do think part of it is because towards the end, I found out a few things that I wasn't aware about in the house, and I know that if I'm watching it back, I'm going to be screaming at the TV like, "Get away from that person! They don't
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you.
yeah.
They don't have your best interest at heart." And it's so frustrating. It's like watching, you know, when you watch a horror movie and you're like, "Don't open that door.
Yeah.
Don't open that door." So that's why I think that is. I think had my last week in the house been a bit different, maybe I would have watched it back. But I lived it, and I'm so happy that yeah that I got to experience it.
Yeah, it must have been an incredible experience. Like, I think it's interesting because it's a different era than it was back in the day, meaning it's a very social media driven era. And so it was, a lot of it was the kind of the clips that started to come through. One of my favorites was you're doing like pull ups on the door or something. And they're like, this is Big Brother. The house is not your playground, Zelah.
It's just so funny because I heard they showed that but essentially the context of that is I did that every single day until they told me to get
Okay.
down. And the voice of Big Brother told me that they'd actually planned that day to say that line because they knew I was going to do it because I did it
Yeah.
every day, and they were like, when he does it today, and that's why apparently, yeah, they deliberately had this particular person on speaker to say it. But yeah.
It was good. But also, I think, you know, other moments did obviously go quote unquote very viral from the show.
Mhm.
One of them very specifically was there was a moment, I think, that you were all playing Spin the Bottle. and you were misgendered, and there was quite a, it wasn't a tense confrontation, but as a viewer, it felt very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that moment sparked a lot of conversation online. I think for a lot of us, our hearts kind of collectively broke for you because we saw you go into the diary room and you kind of said, Big Brother, I was just misgendered. And you could just feel this kind of like, it felt to us anyway, as a viewer, this kind of sense of sadness that this had happened. For
Mhm.
you, though, living that, what was that experience like in real time? It happens, you go to the diary room, and then how did it feel? I'm assuming hearing or seeing some of the reaction from the public when you got out of the house.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like from what I've seen from the reaction to it and stuff, and that is the one episode I have watched back because a lot of people brought it
Yeah.
up to me, so I did think, okay, I should do my homework and figure out what's been shown. Yeah, I mean, I think the word you used summed it up quite well. I was uncomfortable. I don't mind being misgendered in my day to day, and I think that a lot of the far right like to run with the perception that you can't get anything wrong, but that's not the case. I think the incident itself was very strong, and it did hurt me. I was shocked that it hurt me, but it did. And I think, like, I mean, as you saw from my reaction, I didn't get angry. I wasn't
No.
angry. I just dealt with my emotions in that moment in time, and I actually also was asking myself, like, why do you feel this way? What is it about this particular moment of misgendering? And yeah, and it was interesting, and I was really lucky to have a good support network in there. And I definitely have no regrets about the way that um I dealt with it afterwards and the conversation I had with the individual. I meant what I said when I said I forgave her for that. I think that there's been a lot of narrative online that or people have been labeling this person as transphobic because of it. Those words have never left my mouth. I've never called her transphobic because of that. I meant what I said when I forgave her for it. Now I might question some other actions of the individual, but no, it's never been that. And I like that to be the case because I don't like people to kind of take my trans identity and use it as a weapon against me. It's a bit weird, but yeah.
And then I guess because, one of the things that I'm curious about, because we had Jackson Feely on the podcast and he talked about this a little bit, which is his relationship with himself pre-transition. And he kind of has these strong feelings that, he doesn't want people to try and erase that person because that was a big person, part of their life and it's a big part of his family life. What's kind of your relationship with yourself pre-transition? Do you have any strong feelings one way or another?
Yeah, so my relationship myself is I see myself as I do use the words when I was a woman, which sometimes makes me a bit unpopular for using those words. Some people don't like that in the trans community. However, I'm a strong believer in we should be able to talk about our own identities how we like, and I'll always be conscious when talking about other people's identities and the words I use. I wouldn't say to a trans man when you were a woman, but when I talk about myself, I do because I personally like, although if I'd grown up in a world where I was allowed to be trans, or I knew what trans was when I was 6, I probably would have lived a very different life and the journey from A to B would have been a lot shorter. However, that wasn't the case. And I was forced to be feminine and go to an all girls school and try and be a woman. And I was a woman. I really was like I experienced womanhood, I experienced girlhood. And even though I never quite fit the mold, I think that those experiences they made me who I am today, and I'm so grateful for them. Even though, like, yes, in an ideal world, I probably wouldn't have had those experiences. So yeah, and so I very much have that kind of I still feel like that was a part of me. I always feel like womanhood was a big part of me.
And then when you go on to a show like Big Brother, obviously, there's millions of people who are watching, and therefore inevitably puts you into a position of visibility. And I know you mentioned that was kind of some of your anxiety going in there. Did you feel a sense of kind of responsibility knowing, okay, I'm going in? Because also, on a show like that, there's generally speaking, there's going to be one trans person, right? So they're not going to have you and another trans person there. So the responsibility lands on you in that situation to represent the community. Did you feel that sense of responsibility, or did you just think, I'm just going to go in here, be myself, and can't, try and survive the experience, or were you concerned with the latter?
Yeah, so I posted something when I came out of the house, which was my notes page that I'd essentially written a few hours after finding out I was going to Big Brother. And it was along the lines of like, I am so scared to get this wrong for a community
Mm.
suffering. Um, like I'm not naive enough to think that I represent the entirety of the trans community, but I am aware enough of my experience of being a trans person, of being a mixed race person, of being a woman. When you are part of a marginalized community, people will pin your actions against that entire community. One person gets something wrong and the entire community is responsible. Um, and that can be really scary. That was the thing I was definitely most scared of, and definitely the thing that weighed most heavily on my shoulders before I accepted to go in.
Yeah. And obviously, we touched on your using the Big Brother house as your personal playground. Clearly, fitness has been just a huge part of your life and kind of physical training. It's something I see consistently across kind of your social channels. When did fitness become that to you? When did it become so important to you? And what role do you think fitness and physical training has played in your journey to date?
Oh, it's one of my biggest crutches mentally, I would say. I've only recently, it seems fairly obvious, but I've only recently in the past couple of weeks realized how much it has played a role in the fact that like the my yet to be diagnosed ADHD or maybe diagnosed ADHD, like I think that has played a massive role in the sense of like keeping me calm over the years. It's been my own like self-medication. But originally what got me into fitness was when I was 19, my second year of university, I joined a women's rugby team. At the time, I was quite overweight. I smoked. I was asthmatic. I was really, really unhealthy after years of like my teen years were really, like I said, like chaotic, rebellious, also really unhealthy. I was a chain smoker, then got diagnosed with asthma at 17 and kept smoking. And as joining a women's rugby team, which is I know so opposite to me now. Joining a rugby team, I was like, well, three things that don't go hand in hand: smoking, rugby, and being asthmatic. So something needs to go. So slowly, like cut out the smoking, and I have a really addictive personality. Probably you would have guessed from the things I just told you, and fitness became my addiction. What I lacked in rugby skill, I needed to make up for in the gym, and I did. I made it my entire personality. Became a little bit unbearable with it, and it just stuck. And it became, and then later when I went on to transition, it just became a crutch in my life. It's helped me mold my body in a way that I feel comfortable, even pre-transition when I was a masculine lesbian, getting more toned, like slimming down my waist as well, because my love handles were always a dysphoria before I even knew what dysphoria was. It was also a big part of my body dysmorphia as well. And without getting too deep, but I was diagnosed with an eating disorder when I was 14 or 15. So fitness also helped me with that recovery as well, because I still was very much suffering with that eating disorder until I was about 20. So yeah, it's fixed or helped so many parts of my life. So yeah, I'm really grateful to fitness for that.
Yeah. I mean, if I go like a few days without going to the gym, it starts to kind of, I just feel like tense and like, so how did you going into the Big Brother house? Now, you know, there's not going to be a gym in the Big Brother house. So how did you deal with kind of knowing you weren't going to be able to go to the gym and work out the way you would normally work out for weeks in theory?
So as a person, I tend to have a lot of self-doubt, but there's one thing I don't doubt, and that's my ability to make a gym out of anything.
Find a gym.
I knew I was like I'll be like I was a bit like, oh, this is going to be hard, because I do know how much I rely on exercise to calm me down and just like, you know, not be too erratic. Even when like I work my corporate jobs and I'd be getting up at 6 a.m. to go to the gym, and if there was a day a week where I didn't go to the gym, I'd go to the office and my head would just be cloudy. So I was
Mm.
worried about that going into Big Brother, but I kind of knew that I'd find a way, and I did find a
Yeah.
way. Lots of push-ups, and especially I think after a week in, I discovered that actually I can make a little lap out of this garden. um, and apparently after I was evicted, the track was still in the grass from me doing my 100 laps a day. It started off as 50 laps a day, and I realized, no, that's too little, far too little. So I started doing 100 laps a day. I'm doing my workout in the morning, and then that would just I just feel good for the rest of the day. I could just sit around and have conversations and not be a nightmare. So yeah.
How quickly, like, do you forget, or do you forget the cameras are on you in that situation, right? Because I'm just thinking through, you just said sit down, have conversations. Like, I would assume at some point I would stop thinking, I've got to remember that there's a camera looking at me, but then I'm wearing a mic pack and stuff. So at what point did you forget, oh, I've got cameras looking at me? Or did you ever forget that?
So when watching reality TV, I always wonder how people get. I always used to wonder how people get a bad edit because I'm like, aren't you just aware of the cameras all the time? And
Yeah.
the truth is, like, I mean, for me personally, yeah, think it became very normal after a while. But I was always aware there was a camera there, but I was never necessarily performing for the. I thought I would be. I thought like naturally you're going to be aware that there's a camera there or whatever. But I think also my my issue is I'm quite trusting. So in my head, I'm like, how can you ever make this look bad? Like I think when people are talking about like specifically when I was cuddling an individual in bed and they tried to make it weird. I knew there was a camera on me in that moment in time, but in my head, I was like, "How would you make this weird? Who would sexualize
Yeah.
this situation?" But they did. So, like, I think actually it's a balance of like you are aware they're there, like, but we'd all but you can't hide your personality for that long. So I think if anyone is going in there trying to, suppress certain parts of them, they will come out. You're in a high pressure
Yeah.
environment. But it's like we'd be having conversations and you'd hear the camera go, "Zzz," and we'd like laugh about
There.
so it's like, yeah, like, they're there. Like, we had this jokey, like, Marcus and Elsa were a couple from my season, and we had this thing, we called it the pervy camera. There was this camera that would just like all our cameras were like facing around the room, but their one at night would just pan down. It was like, what? So like, it was like
Wow.
over there. But yeah.
And obviously, not many of us can probably ever kind of appreciate what it feels like to be quote unquote watched 24 hours a day. Did that experience teach you anything about yourself? Did it, did you come out of there feeling different than you went into the house?
Yeah, I mean, my two biggest aims going into Big Brother were one, learn how to be more direct, and really like kind of stick up for yourself in that regard. Like it's okay to like set your own boundaries. And secondly, to make just one really good friend. Um, and I think, yeah, I achieved both of those things quite well. It's funny, I came out and I'd seen certain narratives saying that when I'd called like close friends out for doing certain things and stuff, and I heard certain people like he's playing a game. Funnily enough, that was actually it was like my own little homework. Actually, if anything, I was achieving what I wanted. Like I was trying to teach myself like be more direct, tell people what you
Yeah.
think of them, and those are actually some of my proudest moments. Like having those really tough conversations or uncomfortable conversations, but learning to just because I kept saying to myself, and you won't like me saying this, but I'm 25 now. Like I'm an adult. Like, I need to advocate for myself more. I can't spend my life just like feeling a bit like not liking to have the uncomfortable conversations or like really for myself. So yeah.
And I think what's interesting as well for you, and something I really admire about what you've done since you've come out, is you're obviously involved in like kind of the political space, meaning you're not afraid to kind of share your opinions. Has that been something you've consciously done? You mentioned politics has always kind of been part of your world and your way of thinking. I think as LGBTQ people, we often feel we have to be political because we often are the focus of politics. Is that why you're so passionate about it? Or is there something else that's kind of driving you to kind of get involved and to voice your opinion in that way?
Yeah, I'd say honestly, my master's has nothing to do with my passion in politics. I actually think my passion for politics came after studying it,
Yeah.
which happens to a lot of people. I loved reading, and then I studied an English degree, and it put me off it for a few years. So like, yeah, but I think you are right. I think as people in the LGBT space, it's hard not to be political. I mean, coming off the back of the house when people call me too political, I'm not, I don't have a choice. Like, there are certain people in there, people that I'm close to in there who wanted to be apolitical. And they asked me, did I ever consider doing the same thing? I was like, I didn't have a choice. Either way, I was going to be politicized in some way. So I wanted to do it on my terms. And as a person, I am outspoken, I am opinionated, and I'm passionate, and I'd like to think empathetic as well. Um, and I think you can't really be any of those things without being political, because otherwise, like for me, that's where my passion should lie. And in this day and age, I don't understand how you can be apolitical. And I think
Yeah.
if you are, then that's okay. I do think you have to admit there is a certain privilege with being apolitical. And yeah, I don't have that privilege, nor do I have that want. So yeah.
No. And we all appreciate it because it feels like it's more important than ever, right? The society we live in, like a lot of people spend a lot of time talking about US politics, but British politics is in a similar state. And I do think there is a real need to change the way we look at politics. And again, if people are going to throw LGBTQ plus people into the politics the way they have and make us such a, specifically as well, the trans community, if they're going to make us such a huge part of the political world, then obviously we're going to react to that and respond to that.
Yeah.
And then obviously the media also has a massive role to play, and shows like Big Brother, but also just generally the media. How do you feel trans representation has evolved from a media perspective? Is it improving, or do you still think there are gaps in how trans stories are told by trans people?
Yeah, I think there's so many gaps for representation in the media. I mean, even like queer representation now. I mean, I Kissed a Girl, I Kissed a Boy being
Yeah,
cancelled. We don't have much queer representation, but especially trans representation, and the representation we tend to have. And I think it's why so many people loved Heated Rivalry so much, and why people loved Heartstopper as well, because those are two really good but rare examples of queer representation that isn't tragic. Um, and it's so nice to have that. But yeah, it's really rare we get that. And I think shows like Big Brother, like reality TV, where you know you have there's nothing normal about being locked in a house and having cameras on. It's the normal side of things as
yeah,
well. And I think what I said to the producers during my audition process, like I'm just a normal guy. Like, and I think that's like, I know that some people during the audition process, you go and you're like, I'm gonna start the drama and stuff. I never said that. It's like I'm pretty average. But I think that's what the trans community might need. So yeah, it's like in the world of this current media mindset, and the atmosphere is very much like outrage sells. We only ever hear the bad things.
yeah,
Um, and we need more good, and good can often come from normal. Also, you shouldn't have to be exceptional to be
yeah.
trans, be queer in the public eye as well. So yeah, at the moment it kind of exists between two dichotomies. You have to be incredibly good, or something bad's happened to you or the people around you, and that's yeah, we wanna kind of move away from that.
Yeah, I agree. It's showing people kind of just like living their lives, like so many of us do. Not many of us are kind of thrown into extreme circumstances. We are just living our lives. And that's kind of the message I always try and get across to people is, everyone just wants to live their life its fullest, to its happiest. And therefore we should allow people to do that. And I think when you can, I think that's why big shows like Big Brother are so important, because they can show people who are just quote unquote living their life in a house being watched by everyone, but they are just normal people living their life. And I think that helps normalize conversations. You heard about it a lot. You mentioned Heartstopper when Heartstopper was aired, where people were having conversations with their parents because this was a show that was just on Netflix that a lot of people were watching. And it kind of sparks those conversations. And I would be pretty sure that a show like Big Brother has done the same, where people could see you in there just living your life and being authentically you and being so lovable and being someone that everyone could get behind, that then they could have those conversations. And have you heard that? Have you heard anything kind of as you come out of the house that this did help people, not to kind of pat yourself on the back, but that it did help people have those conversations or see themselves kind of reflected in you?
Yeah, I think those are some of my proudest moments when people like it's lovely when people tell you that they liked your personality on TV, but I think the big ones are when people come up to me and say, "Yeah, you actually triggered this conversation in my living room," or like you changed the way my dad looks at this entire topic, and you've humanized XYZ, or you made my trans child feel seen. Those things are amazing. Like, I mean, again, like I don't think it's anything necessarily from what I did or said. It's probably just me being there, but I'm happy to have, been that kind of trigger. It's a huge privilege and honor to have, yeah, if even if I've changed one person's mind for the better about trans people, yeah, it means a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, we started this conversation talking about your younger, messy self. So we're going to end this conversation talking about them as well. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be? And would it be different if I said, what advice would you give to young LGBTQ plus people today?
It probably would be different when I guess the way we talk to ourselves is usually more blunt. I think the first thing I'd say to my younger self is chill out. Um, Sit down, touch some grass, get a cigarette out of your mouth. But no, I think the biggest thing I'd say is actually like don't be afraid to speak your mind because I think well actually no, probably she doesn't need to be told to speak more, but in the sense of don't be afraid to trust your mind. I think
Yeah.
so often I doubted myself a lot in terms of how like in terms of being rational in terms of knowing what was best for myself. And I think, you know, I spent so many years of my life being or trying to be what I was told I should be. And if I could go back to 6-year-old me, I think I would say you're closer to the money than you think you are, or at
Yeah.
least you're closer to the money than everyone else is telling you what you are. So yeah, I think that'd be a big thing I'd say to me. In terms of trans youth in general, I think like I think it's so hard right now to focus on the positive. It is. Um, and I think like I more have a hope for trans youth where they're just able to be ordinary. Like if they're able to be extraordinary too, fantastic. But just like I wish for them to be able to be ordinary, and just live the same life as their peers. Um, because so many don't get to. I mean, I'm 25. I mean, I shouldn't say I turned 26 in 3 days. But like, so I'm 26, and I still find the joy in like being topless, playing football with my friends, which is fantastic. But like, I also wish that as a trans child is able to take that moment for granted as much as their cis male friends, for example. So yeah, so for any trans kids out there, I'd say like just keep focusing on yourself. It's so hard not to filter out. It's so hard to filter out the noise in this current climate. Um, don't let people tell you what you are. You'll figure it out in time, and there's no pressure to get to that point. But just yeah, that's what I would say.
I love that. I think that's amazing advice. Look, Zelah, thank you so much for coming on Queer Talk. But I really appreciate you didn't get to see this, but when you were going into the house, there was such a love for you. And I think everyone wanted so much for you because we all felt that you were such a kind, caring, genuine person. So you didn't get to see that, but we all felt it. And then the community came around you, and it was such a beautiful thing to see. So, and then since you've come out, the work you're doing from a fitness perspective, but also for shining a light on important topics and critical topics, I think is really important. So I appreciate you not only coming on the podcast, but everything you do and continue to do for the entire LGBTQ plus community.
Thank you, Ben. I really appreciate it.
Quit talking.